Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today's word is something that gets tossed around a lot, eclectic, but what does it actually mean?
Hmm. I'm excited to find out.
We've got a lot of sources here, dictionary definitions, we got some philosophical takes, we've even got some interior design stuff, so we're going to really try to figure out not just what this word means, but how it, how it appears in real life.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a word that, you hear, but you don't really think about it too much.
Yeah, and maybe even how it shows up in your own life.
Ooh.
So let's start with the basics. Merriam-Webster gives us two definitions for eclectic.
Okay.
One is composed of elements drawn from various sources.
Okay.
The second one is selecting the best from various doctrines, methods, or styles.
So there's two parts to it. There's like the mix itself, and then there's also this idea of choosing.
Right, it's not just a random assortment of things.
Right, it's curated.
Yeah, and that's a good point because that kind of leads into this idea that eclecticism has been around for a really long time.
Oh, yeah.
Like ancient Greek philosophers were known for their eclectic approach to knowledge.
That's right. Yeah, they weren't tied to one school of thought. They took what they thought were the best ideas from each and kind of melded them together to create their own personal philosophies.
So they were like the original mixtape masters, but for ideas?
Exactly. Yeah, they were pulling the best tracks from different genres.
Yeah, and so they were really into this idea of taking bits and pieces from different schools of thought and making something new.
Yeah, absolutely. And they believed that truth could be found in many different places, so they weren't afraid to pull from different sources and see what worked.
But was there anything that they really gravitated toward, or was it pretty much anything goes?
Well, they definitely favored logic and reason,
Okay.
but they were also drawn to ideas about ethics, virtue, the good life. I mean, they saw philosophy as a way to live a better life.
So it wasn't just like head knowledge, they were really trying to put it into practice.
Exactly. Yeah, it wasn't just about accumulating knowledge, but about applying it to everyday life.
So not just like head knowledge, but heart and action too.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about the ancient Greeks and this idea of cherry picking the best ideas. But what are some real world examples of this?
Yeah, good question.
We've got a ton in the sources.
Tons of examples. So one that I thought was really fascinating was the Paris Opera House.
Oh, yeah.
Architecturally, it's a masterpiece of eclecticism because it blends elements from different periods, like Baroque Renaissance, even hints of Gothic.
So they basically just took all the greatest hits and put them into one building.
Yeah, and it created this really unique visual experience.
And it works.
It does.
And speaking of greatest hits, we see this in martial arts too, right? Like some styles are known for taking moves from different fighting styles.
Absolutely. Yeah, think of Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune, though it's a prime example of eclectic martial arts.
Yeah.
Because he took what worked from different styles and created his own really fluid dynamic system.
So it's not just about the looks, it's about what's effective. Which makes me wonder, how does this translate to something like music? How can a musician be eclectic?
Right. Well, we have some great examples of that in the sources.
Yeah.
So Tyler Joseph, the lead singer of 21 Pilots, he's known for his really eclectic musical style. He blends alternative rock, hip-hop, pop, even electronic music.
Yeah, their music is all over the place.
It is, and it works for them. They have this really unique sound that resonates with a huge audience.
And it's not just about creating music, it's also about appreciating it.
Oh, right.
Like Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates, his music is very much, has a very specific sound, but he loves rock and roll and he loves going to rock concerts. So it's you can specialize in one thing, but still appreciate a lot of different things.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it kind of speaks to that key element of eclecticism, that ability to see value in different perspectives and different approaches. It's about appreciating the diversity of human expression, and that open-mindedness can lead to some really interesting results.
Okay, so we've seen how this can apply to architecture, martial arts, and music.
Yeah.
But let's switch gears for a second and talk about something a little bit different, psychology.
Oh, okay.
The sources mention eclectic psychotherapy. And I gotta be honest, I don't really know what that means.
Well, so eclectic psychotherapy is basically when a therapist uses a variety of techniques from different schools of thought. So they might use cognitive behavioral therapy for some things and then pull from psychodynamic therapy for other things. It just all depends on what the client needs. It's very customized.
So it's like they have a toolbox full of tools.
Yeah.
And they're choosing the right one for the job.
Exactly.
Okay, but how do they know which tool to use?
Well, that's where their expertise comes in. They assess the client, They consider their individual needs.
Okay.
And then they draw on the approaches that they believe will be most effective.
So give me an example.
Okay, so let's say a client is struggling with anxiety. The therapist might use cognitive behavioral therapy to help them identify and change those negative thought patterns.
Okay.
But they might also use mindfulness techniques from like a more holistic approach to help them manage stress.
So they're basically taking the best of each approach.
Right.
To create a personalized treatment plan.
Yeah, like tailoring a suit.
I like that. Yeah, you're taking measurements, you're considering the fabric, the style you know, and you're creating something that fits perfectly.
Exactly.
And that's cool because it shows how this concept isn't just theoretical, it actually has real-world applications.
Absolutely.
That can make a difference in people's lives.
Real difference.
And we haven't even touched on eclectic design yet.
Ooh, I know. Let's save that one.
Yeah, we'll save that for part 2.
Okay, sounds good. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Tailoring a suit. That's a good one.
Okay, so let's talk eclectic design.
All right.
We've got this Kittle's Furniture article, and they quote designer Angela Mills, and she says, "I like eclectic style because there are no limitations."
Wow.
No limitations.
That's amazing.
Right?
Yeah. You're not bound by any one specific style or period you can mix and match.
So like vintage and modern.
Yeah, vintage and modern, you can have bold colors with subtle textures.
Give me like a for instance.
Okay, so imagine you walk into a room that's designed eclectically, and you see a mid-century modern sofa.
Okay.
But it's paired with an antique rug, and then there's a contemporary art piece on the wall.
It's like a juxtaposition.
Yeah, and it's those unexpected combinations that really spark curiosity and make you want to kind of explore the space more.
So it's not just about what you choose, but how you put it all together.
Exactly. Yeah, it's about finding that common thread, whether it's a color or a texture or a shared theme.
How do you do that?
The Mills talks about this in the article. She says, eclectic design is about creating a cohesive whole, not just throwing things together.
Okay, so you got to be careful.
Yeah, you don't want it to look like a random jumble. It's about finding those pieces that fit together in unexpected ways.
So there is some thought that goes into it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be intentional about it.
Like you're putting a puzzle together.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not a normal puzzle because you're trying to find the pieces that maybe shouldn't fit, but they do.
Right. And that's where the fun comes in. You know, you can experiment, you can play with different combinations, see what sparks joy.
So like maybe you have a vintage lamp that you love.
Yeah.
But then you find this modern side table that somehow just works perfectly with it.
Right, even though they come from completely different eras.
It's meant to be.
I know, right?
Okay, so we've talked about this idea of eclecticism in design in these different fields, but what about on a personal level?
That's interesting.
Like, can a person be eclectic?
I think so. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think about it, we're all a product of our experiences, right? Our influences, the things we've seen and heard and learned, and we kind of pick and choose what resonates with us.
And that shapes our worldview.
Exactly. Yeah. So in a way, we're all curating our own personal eclectic mix of beliefs, values, tastes, interests.
So our personality is like this reflection of all the things that we've chosen to include in our lives.
Yeah. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. What matters is that it reflects who you are.
It's authentic.
It's authentic, yeah.
Okay, so it's about embracing our own unique blend.
Yeah.
Celebrating all of our quirks and contradictions.
Right.
But are there any downsides to being eclectic?
That's a good question. I think sometimes people might misinterpret eclecticism as like a lack of focus.
Okay.
Or direction.
So like someone who has a million hobbies but can't stick with any of them.
Right. Or they might see it as scattered or indecisive.
But being eclectic doesn't mean you can't commit to anything.
No, not at all. It's about being open to possibilities, not being afraid of commitment.
So it's more about exploring different avenues and figuring out what really speaks to you.
Exactly. And it's about being curious and adaptable.
So not a jack of all trades, master of none, but more like, I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, I'm going to try something else.
Exactly. And I think that can lead to a lot of growth and discovery.
Because you never know what you might find.
Yeah. You might be surprised.
Okay. So we've talked about how to be eclectic in our thinking and our choices. But what about our actions? Like, how do we actually apply this to our everyday lives?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah.
And I think it starts with awareness,
Okay.
Just recognizing that we have choices.
So like being mindful of the choices that we make.
Yes, exactly.
Big and small.
Big and small.
Yeah.
From the clothes we wear to the books we read to the people we spend time with.
It's like we're the curators of our own experience.
Exactly.
But that's not always easy, right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in routines and expectations and just the busyness of life.
So how do we stay true to this eclectic spirit?
I think it's about cultivating that sense of curiosity, playfulness, openness.
Reminding ourselves that there's always something new to learn.
Yeah. Always something new to try, something new to discover.
So it's about keeping that spark alive.
Exactly, that spark of adventure.
Even in the mundane.
Even in the mundane. Yeah, finding those little moments of joy and inspiration.
That remind us why we're doing this in the first place.
Exactly.
I think that's a perfect place to stop. For now, we've covered a lot of ground from history of eclecticism to its applications in different fields to even how it plays out in our own personal identities.
Yeah, really interesting stuff.
But there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm excited to see where we go next.
You know, it's funny. We started out trying to define eclectic, but it's kind of like the more we talk about it, the more I realize it's not really like a hard and fast definition.
It's true.
It's more of a guiding principle or a lens to see the world through.
Right. It's about being open to new ideas, experiences, ways of seeing things.
And how all those differences, those things that seem like they don't go together, actually they kind of can, and they make something beautiful.
Yeah.
Like that Paris Opera House we talked about, like all those different architectural styles.
It shouldn't work.
But it does, and it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and it's breathtaking. It really is. And I think it just shows that eclecticism lets you go past all the rules in those categories and make something new.
And maybe that's what's so cool about it. It's like you don't have to stay in the box.
You can experiment.
Yeah, play around, try new things, and who knows, you might find a new song you like or get inspired to do something you haven't done before.
Or a new way of understanding yourself.
Right, and that's the other thing that's so cool about it. Like, you get to choose what you want to put in your own mix.
You get to curate your own experience.
Yeah, and so you're not just along for the ride, you're actually creating something.
Yeah, you're an active participant.
You're the DJ of your own life.
I love that.
And your soundtrack can be as wild and as different as you want.
It can.
Yeah.
But like a DJ, you've got to know how to mix those different tracks together so they flow.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's not just like throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks.
No, you've got to be intentional about it. You have to have a vision.
Right. And like we were saying before, there's that common thread, whether it's colors or a theme or something that ties it all together.
And that's where you have to have that eye.
Yeah.
You know, that ability to tell what goes together, what looks good next to each other.
And trust your gut.
Yes.
You know, that feeling you get when something just clicks.
Absolutely.
And the cool thing is that confidence in your own taste, it can really inspire other people.
Yeah, you see someone who's totally rocking their own unique style.
Yeah.
And it makes you want to do the same.
Yeah, like I can do that too. I can embrace who I am.
It's a reminder that there's no one right way to be.
You don't have to fit in a box.
No. We can each create our own path, our own expression of who we are.
And the world is a much more interesting place when we're all different.
So much more interesting. Yeah, when we celebrate those differences and those unexpected connections and, you know, just let ourselves be surprised.
So I think we've come full circle.
We have.
Eclectic is more than just a word. It's a way of life.
Yeah, it's about being open and curious and adaptable.
It's about embracing diversity and celebrating individuality.
And finding beauty in the unexpected.
And having fun.
Yes, don't forget to have fun.
Don't be afraid to experiment and play mix and match. Try something new.
Who knows what you might find?
You might surprise yourself.
So I guess the question is,
yeah,
what would your life look like if you really embraced this eclectic spirit?
Think about that.
What would you change? What would you explore? What would you create?
And until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep seeking those hidden connections that make life so fascinating.